is not good, and especially here in California. In fact, it's only gotten worse for the last few years. Fox 40 Capitol reporter Eitan Wallace has reaction from decision makers across the state who say that more action is needed.
Tonight, in New York City, the world's supposed capital of opportunity, a crisis of catastrophic scale is unfolding, not on the sidewalks, but on the asphalt. Entire industrial blocks in Queens and the Bronx have transformed into shadowy, makeshift neighborhoods. These are not tent cities, they are silent avenues lined with Class C motor homes, repurposed box trucks, and beat-up vans. This is not a crisis of desperation alone, it is a crisis of design. Once you understand the cold, calculated math of New York's housing policies, you will never look at these streets the same way again. Here's a number that should halt all other discussion. 23,000 people are living in vehicles right now within the 5 boroughs of New York City. This is not a political estimate. This is a population larger than the entire city of Saratoga Springs, sleeping tonight in motor homes scattered from the docks of Staten Island to the warehouses of Hunts Point. And here's the most critical distinction. These are not people who have surrendered. These are working New Yorkers. They hold full-time jobs. They pay taxes. They have done everything the system asked of them. Yet, they have ended up living in their vehicles because doing everything right stopped being enough. Years ago, to understand this crisis is to understand the future of American housing. It is the story of a city that outgrew its working class and then engineered policies to hide the evidence. Look closely at the clusters. 58th Road in Maspeth, Queens, tucked between 24-hour industrial operations. Service roads along Hunts Point Avenue in the Bronx, bordered by wholesale food distributors. Overnight lots near Arthur Kill Road, Staten Island, where container ships loom large. Walk these corridors before dawn, and you see the stark reality. Duct-taped Winnebagos, box trucks with sheet curtains, vehicles coated in condensation. Their occupants using solar panels zip-tied to the roof because no one living here can afford electricity. These residents are not transients. They are night shift warehouse workers at Amazon facilities. They are hospital cleaning staff at Mount Sinai, priced out of every neighborhood within commuting distance. They are seniors on fixed Social Security incomes who watch the rent-stabilized buildings they called home for decades get sold to investment firms. The choice they faced was binary: street homelessness, or vehicle dwelling, a condition that is merely homelessness with a roof that you technically own. The geography of this crisis is not random. It is concentrated in industrial zones where commercial vehicle parking is semi-legal. Long Island City, Hunts Point, Red Hook, JFK cargo areas. This is the hidden city inside the city, where 23,000 people operate by a completely different, hostile set of rules, and the population continues to grow because the mechanisms creating it have not slowed. They have accelerated.
Well, the federal government's report on homelessness certainly is not promising, as lawmakers from both parties tell me they're working together to address the issue they say is at the top of their list.
The crisis begins with the raw, brutal data. This is domino number 5, the impossibility of affordability. Let's dissect the numbers that make vehicle dwelling mathematically inevitable. For thousands of New Yorkers, the median rent for a one-bedroom apartment in New York City is currently $3,900 per month. Crucially, this is a citywide average, encompassing the Bronx, Outer Queens, and Staten Island, not just the ultra-expensive core of Manhattan. Now, consider the income. The median household income in New York City is approximately $71,000 per year. This figure, often touted as middle class, dissolves instantly under the city's tax burden. After federal, state, and city taxes, Medicare, and Social Security, that $71,000 household takes home roughly $52,000 annually, translating to $4,333 per month. If rent consumes $3,900 of that monthly income, only $433 remains for every other expense: food, transportation, utilities, phone service, clothing, and all necessary costs of existence in one of the world's most expensive cities. This scenario is not just difficult, It is a formula for immediate financial collapse. But the situation is worse due to the industry's gatekeeping standards. Most residential landlords in New York demand that tenants prove an annual income of at least 40 times the monthly rent. For a median $3,900 apartment, this requires a verified annual income of $156,000. This single, non-negotiable requirement immediately disqualifies virtually the entire segment of New Yorkers earning the median income or below. You are not making poor financial choices. You are working full-time at wages the city deems average, and the math simply will not close the gap. The chasm between housing costs and working wages is too wide to bridge through better budgeting or harder work. The result is a devastating displacement cascade. Many attempt to hold onto their rent-stabilized units through sheer luck or long-term residency. A nurse's aide, for example, working for 30 years in her community, pays $1.800 for a two-bedroom apartment in Washington Heights, a unit that would command $3.500 at market rate. She believes she is safe. Then, the building sells. The new owner is not a local landlord. It is often a real estate investment firm based hundreds of miles away, owning thousands of units. Their only interest is maximizing profit. They are not interested in collecting $1.800 from a senior on a fixed income when the market rate is twice that. The process of deregulation begins. New owners often initiate required renovations that force tenants out temporarily, or building-wide improvements designed to justify the deregulation of the unit upon their return. In reality, once the long-term, rent-stabilized tenant leaves, the unit is aggressively renovated and re-rented at the market rate. Suddenly, a 68-year-old retired home health aide, living on a Social Security income of perhaps $1.400 a month, finds herself priced out of every neighborhood she has ever known. She applies for senior housing, but the waiting list has been frozen for decades. She applies for Section 8 vouchers, but she is number 73,000 in line. Her final, desperate act is to use the $12,000 she saved over 30 years to purchase a used, 20-year-old Winnebago. It is paid for. It is hers. It locks. She drives it to an industrial area in Hunts Point, where she hears enforcement might be less severe. The worker did not fail. The city outgrew her. It deemed her 3 decades of labor and tax contributions insufficient to deserve a stable roof over her head.
The president will soon unveil a new plan he hopes will reduce nationwide homelessness by 25% come 2025. Reporting here in Sacramento, Eitan Wallace.
The failure of the housing market pushes people into the vehicles. The failure of the social safety net ensures they stay there. This is domino number 4, the shelter system as a trap. New York City's shelter system currently houses over 65,000 people nightly. That is the number officially cited. Yet it is functionally misleading because it entirely fails to count the 23,000 vehicle dwellers. The shelter system was designed for the street homeless, for those with literally zero possessions or assets. This mechanism is crucial. When someone living in an RV applies for shelter, the vehicle itself is often counted as an asset. Think of the perverse incentive to qualify for the city's help. The individual must surrender the vehicle. This means giving up their only means of transportation to their job, giving up the only private, lockable space they control, and giving up the only thing that has kept their family safe and together for months. A parent must weigh the decision. Do I keep my children relatively safe in a private, if dilapidated, vehicle, or do I surrender it to enter a shelter? The reality of the shelter system often dictates the answer. The average shelter stay for families now stretches to 15 months. These are facilities notorious for endemic bed bugs, regular violence, and widespread theft. Fathers are often housed separately from mothers and children, fracturing the family unit. For single adults, the conditions in congregate shelters where hundreds sleep in one room are even more perilous, offering zero privacy, security, or the stability required to seek employment. Stories of assault, theft, and unsanitary conditions are so common they barely register in the city's official discourse. The calculation is clear. Keep the RV. At least they control their own space. At least their children are shielded from the trauma of shelter life. At least they can maintain the job that currently employs them, avoiding the impossible commute from a remote shelter in the Bronx to a night shift warehouse job in Maspeth. The shelter system is not viewed as a solution. It is viewed as a trap that makes the eventual return to stable housing harder, not easier. Yet, even after choosing this desperate stability, the city comes for the vehicle anyway. This leads to the next layer of regulation, designed for non-compliance. This is the harsh reality of the street bans. Living in an RV in New York requires becoming an expert in complex, shifting, and contradictory regulations, alternate side parking rules that vary by neighborhood, commercial vehicle restrictions that prohibit RVs often classed as commercial from parking in residential areas after 9 p.m., length restrictions that bar vehicles over 22 feet from 70% of city streets, and the foundation of all enforcement, the 72-hour rule. Any vehicle parked on a public street for more than 72 consecutive hours can be ticketed and towed. While the 72-hour rule is applied universally, its enforcement is almost exclusively targeted at the industrial zones where RV dwellers congregate. They develop elaborate, meticulous systems, memorizing sweeping schedules, setting multiple to o'clock a.m. alarms, and moving their 30-foot home 3 blocks over before the deadline expires. They must plan their entire lives around this non-stop, 72-hour clock. They become parking law experts just to maintain a place to sleep. They build networks with other dwellers, sharing real-time information about sweeps and safe zones. This constant, high-stakes mental load is managed while simultaneously working full-time jobs. The pressure is immense, exhausting, and designed to lead to a single mistake. The city's policies not only prevent legal parking, but actively remove the infrastructure necessary to maintain basic human hygiene and health. This is domino number 3, when the city removes your infrastructure. The most shocking failure is the simplest. New York City has 0 legal RV dump stations within its city limits. 0. The nearest legally permitted facility for emptying an RV's waste tanks is over 60 miles away, requiring a 120-mile round trip, burning unaffordable gas, and necessitating time off work. What happens instead is a catastrophic public health failure. People are forced to use public restrooms, if they can find them and if they are open. They resort to bottles and bags when there are no other options. They ration water intake to avoid needing to use bathrooms they don't have access to, leading to severe dehydration. This rationing results in endemic health issues, urinary tract infections, that often escalate into serious kidney infections requiring emergency care, and chronic skin infections due to the inability to shower regularly. The issue of clean water access is equally dire. There are no public water filling stations designed for RVs. Residents must rely on small park fountains, kind businesses, or gas stations, which are unreliable, conditional, and frequently unavailable outside of business hours. Access to public restrooms, while theoretically possible, is practically eliminated by closing hours. Parks close at dusk. Subway station bathrooms are frequently locked. Libraries close at 6 p.m. For the overwhelming majority of vehicle dwellers who work overnight shifts, the entire city is closed when they need basic facilities. A sudden health emergency outside business hours leaves them completely without options. Showering becomes a Herculean logistical task that takes precedence over everything else. Gym memberships are revoked when staff recognize the morning shower routine is an act of homelessness. Truck stops with facilities are in New Jersey, costing precious time and gas. Many go days without showering, simply because the logistics of finding an open, safe, available water source are insurmountable. The employment consequence is immediate and brutal. Without the ability to maintain basic hygiene, regular showering, washing clothes, maintaining customer-facing or food service jobs becomes impossible. People who were working full-time start losing hours, receiving write-ups for appearance issues they cannot explain without admitting they are unhoused, and eventually getting fired for reasons entirely solvable by access to running water and a bathroom. The city makes it physically impossible to maintain the basic hygiene required to be an employed citizen, then punishes them by allowing the conditions to cost them their jobs. Enforcement then arrives to finish the work of infrastructure abandonment. The systematic lack of infrastructure and the perpetual movement guarantee the ultimate penalty. This is domino number 2, when towing means losing everything. Enforcement is not random. The NYPD and the Department of Sanitation DSNY run coordinated, efficient quality of life operations specifically targeting industrial zones where RVs cluster. These are not routine patrols, they are targeted sweeps, occurring monthly near JFK Cargo, quarterly in Hunts Point, and every 6 weeks in Maspeth. The DSNY operates its own specialized RV towing program, separate from regular parking enforcement. They towed over 2,300 inhabited vehicles in 2024. These were not abandoned cars, they were homes. The process is brutally simple. Enforcement shows up, checks for the 72-hour violation, and tows immediately. There is no warning left on the windshield. If the resident is at work, at the laundromat, or taking their children to school, they return to an empty space. Everything they own is gone. The cost structure makes recovery mathematically impossible. For those who couldn't afford a $7,000 apartment deposit, the tow fee, $800 to $2,000, depending on vehicle size. Violations, a barrage of accumulated fines, parking over 72 hours, commercial vehicle violations, expired registration, broken lights, all charged simultaneously. Storage, $25 per day, every day. The total cost to recover an RV typically ranges from $1,500 to $3,000 within the first week. For the unhoused, this amount is as impossible as $15,000. The recovery rate is devastatingly low. 90% of vehicles towed from RV dwellers are never recovered. This statistic, tracked by advocacy groups, means that 90% of the time, the city's enforcement action results in the permanent loss of shelter, transportation, and all remaining possessions. This is the moment the RV dweller becomes street homeless, sleeping on subway trains, in parks, or in doorways. The city spends millions to create the exact outcome everyone agrees should be prevented. The enforcement also creates criminalization. The thousands of unpaid parking fines turn into warrants, which then cripple their credit, suspend their driver's licenses, making their job impossible, and create a criminal record. This criminalization of survival becomes the permanent obstacle, preventing them from ever accessing the legal housing system again. The city operates on the costly pretense that these 23,000 people do not exist. But that pretense comes with a price tag that, when calculated honestly, PROVES, that doing nothing is exponentially more expensive than doing something. This is domino number 1, the true cost of pretending. We can quantify the financial damage created by refusing to provide basic stability. The health system costs. Hospitals are forced to absorb the costs created by lack of infrastructure. Vehicle dwellers use emergency rooms for completely preventable conditions. A recurring urinary tract infection, stemming from water rationing and lack of restroom access, escalates because they cannot afford urgent care. It turns into a severe kidney infection, necessitating a costlier visit. The average emergency room visit in New York costs about $1,400. A vehicle dweller with chronic, preventable issues might visit the ER 6 to 10 times per year. This translates to $8,000 to $14. Zero in emergency care costs per person annually, costs absorbed almost entirely by the public health system. The economic costs, lost revenue when a working person loses their job because they cannot maintain hygiene or manage the 72-hour loop. The city loses more than just a productive citizen. It loses tax revenue, Social Security contributions, and local economic activity. The individual is then forced to access public benefits they didn't need when they were employed. Conservative estimates suggest each person forced out of employment due to housing instability costs the city approximately $8,000 annually in lost tax revenue and increased benefit utilization. Multiplying this across the 23,000 vehicle dwellers reveals a staggering, unseen burden on the municipal budget. The educational impacts: there are an estimated 200 school-aged children living in vehicles in New York City. They are forced to use old or relatives' addresses to stay enrolled. The impacts are devastating. Chronic absenteeism, because families must move the vehicle at 2 a.m. Poor academic performance, because children attempt to do homework by phone light. Behavioral issues stemming from chronic trauma and instability. The investment in their education is undermined by the instability of their housing, creating long-term social costs. The direct enforcement costs the $19 million budget. The enforcement costs alone are staggering, fully tracked across budget lines. NYPD overtime for RV sweeps, $4 million annually. RV towing operations, $7 million annually. Vehicle storage and auction systems, $5 million annually. Court system processing RV-related violations, $3 million annually. The total direct enforcement spending in 2024 reached $19 million. This $19 million achieved exactly 0 long-term housing placements. It did not prevent anyone from becoming homeless. It merely moved the problem around, making it infinitely worse for the people involved. The simple comparison is undeniable. The current approach costs more and helps no one. The proven alternative costs less and actually solves the crisis. The solutions are not hypothetical. They are operational models proven to work at scale across the country. New York City only needs to choose to implement them. First, safe parking programs. Cities like San Diego have demonstrated the effectiveness of this simple concept, providing a legal, secure place to park, access to sanitation, and intensive case management. Their success rate: 87% of participants transition into permanent housing. Within 12 months, not shelter, but permanent apartments. The cost is approximately $4,000 to $100 per person annually. Second, vehicle triage centers. Los Angeles pioneered these comprehensive service hubs, providing on-site medical care, showers, laundry, legal aid clinics, and specialized housing navigators. The outcome metrics are superior. 85% of participants remain stably housed 2 years later, because the support stabilizes them before the transition. Third, policy changes over punishment. The city must implement common-sense policies that facilitate stability. Exempt vehicles enrolled in case management from the 72-hour rule. Designate existing industrial zones for legal overnight RV parking. Install basic public infrastructure, water filling, and dump stations. Making legal disposal easier than illegal dumping immediately addresses the public health crisis. Include the 23,000 vehicle dwellers in the city's official housing plans and homeless counts. You cannot solve a problem you refuse to name. This is not a crisis of resources. The funding exists, it is currently being misspent on enforcement. The operational models exist, they are proven in cities across the U.S. What is missing is the political will to acknowledge that New York City has become fundamentally unaffordable for its working people. The city must choose: continue spending $19 million annually to create more street homelessness, or invest in solutions that cost less and actually end the cycle. The crisis of vehicle homelessness in New York is a tragedy of choice. We have exposed the systemic policies that drive a working population to live in fear and constant motion. The choice is now simple. We can either continue to spend vast sums to push people around, or we can invest in stability. We urge you to demand accountability. Share this investigation. Support the advocacy groups fighting for safe parking and an end to this systemic cruelty. The unseen city is waiting for its government to choose humanity over optics.